Have you ever wondered how this simple machine, the bicycle, completely revolutionized our world? It's more than just two wheels and a frame. It's a story of innovation, freedom, and social change. Join me as we pedal back in time to uncover the incredible journey of the bicycle. Our story begins long before the sleek bikes we know today. Think late 18th and early 19th centuries. The very first whispers of a human-powered vehicle weren't about speed or sport, but about a fundamental human desire to move faster than our own 2 feet could carry us. The idea was radical. Imagine a world dominated by horse-drawn carriages and walking. The concept of balancing on 2 wheels and propelling yourself forward was pure science fiction to most. One of the earliest pioneers was a German baron named Karl von Drey. In 1817, he unveiled his invention, the Laufmaschine, or running machine. You might know it as the Draisienne or the hobby horse. This thing was a far cry from a modern bike. It was made almost entirely of wood, had no pedals and no chain. So how did it work? You'd sit on the saddle, and then you'd run. You would push off the ground with your feet, kind of like a modern balance bike for kids. The goal was to build up enough momentum to lift your feet and glide for a short distance. It might look clumsy to us now, but back then it was a sensation. It was the first time a person could travel at a decent speed without a horse. For a brief period, these hobby horses became a fashionable novelty for wealthy young men in Western Europe. They'd race them in parks, showing off their daring and balance. But it wasn't a practical mode of transport. The wooden wheels and iron rims made for a bone-jarring ride on the cobblestone streets of the era. In fact, they were so bumpy that they earned the nickname bone shakers, and for good reason. The Draisienne was a brilliant first step, but it was just that, a step. It proved that balancing on 2 wheels was possible, planting a seed in the minds of inventors across the world. It sparked the question, how can we make this better? How can we propel it without having our feet drag on the ground? This question would set the stage for the next great leap in bicycle evolution. The dream of effortless, human-powered flight on land was born, but it would take a few more decades of tinkering, breakthroughs, and some truly wild designs before the true bicycle began to take shape. The bone shaker had its moment, but the public was hungry for something more. Something with ... pedals. And that's where our story gets really interesting. Stay tuned as we explore how the addition of pedals transformed this quirky toy into a powerful tool for social change. So, the hobby horse was fun, but not very practical. The real game changer came around the 1860s in France. The exact origin is a bit debated, but people like Pierre Lallement and the Michaud family are often credited with a revolutionary idea, attaching pedals directly to the hub of the front wheel. This was it. The velocipede was born. For the first time, you could propel the machine without your feet ever touching the ground. You could sit, pedal, and roll. This was a massive leap forward. Suddenly, riding schools or velocipede academies popped up in cities like Paris. Young men flocked to learn this new skill. It became a craze, a new sport, and a spectacle. But there was a catch. To go faster, you needed a bigger front wheel. Why? Because with direct drive pedals, 1 rotation of the pedals equaled 1 rotation of the wheel. A bigger wheel meant you traveled a greater distance with each push. This simple principle of physics led to one of the most iconic and, let's be honest, terrifying designs in bicycle history, the penny farthing, also known as the high wheeler. These bikes, popular in the 1870s and 1880s, were a symbol of athletic prowess and social status. They had a gigantic front wheel that could be over 5 feet tall, and a tiny little wheel in the back for stability. To ride one, you had to be brave. Getting on required a running start and a hop into the saddle, perched precariously high above the ground. The view from up there was commanding, and you could travel at impressive speeds. But it was incredibly dangerous. The term taking a header comes from this era, describing the all-too-common accident where hitting a small rock or bump would send the rider flying head-first over the handlebars. Because of the danger and the physical strength required, penny farthing riding was almost exclusively a domain for athletic, well-to-do young men. It was an exclusive club. Women, constrained by the long, heavy skirts of the Victorian era, were completely left out. The penny farthing was a marvel of engineering, but it wasn't a bike for the people. For the bicycle to truly become a force for freedom and mobility, it needed to be safer, more accessible, and easier for everyone to ride. The era of the towering penny farthing was thrilling, but its danger and exclusivity were its... Have you ever hopped on a bike and just felt that rush of freedom? The wind in your hair, the world whizzing by. It feels so simple, so natural. But have you ever stopped to think about where this amazing machine came from? It's a story packed with surprising twists, incredible innovation, and a powerful impact on society itself. This isn't just about gears and wheels. It's about social mobility, the birth of leisure, and even a revolution in fashion. So strap in, because we're about to take a ride through history to uncover the incredible story of the bicycle. Our journey begins not with pedals and chains, but with a volcano. Yes, a volcano. In 1815, Mount Tambora in Indonesia erupted in one of the largest volcanic events in recorded history. The eruption threw so much ash into the atmosphere that it created a volcanic winter, leading to a year without a summer in 1816. Crops failed across the northern hemisphere, and the price of oats skyrocketed. This meant feeding horses, the primary mode of transportation, became incredibly expensive. Many were even slaughtered for food. The world was facing a transportation crisis. Enter a German inventor, Baron Karl von Dray. He saw this problem and started tinkering. His solution, unveiled in 1817, was a curious contraption he called the Lauf machine, or running machine. We know it today as the draisine or the hobby horse. Picture this, a simple wooden beam connecting two wheels with a basic handlebar for steering. There were no pedals, no gears, no chain. How did you move? You just sat on the saddle and pushed off the ground with your feet, like a modern balance bike for kids. On its first recorded journey, Dray rode his machine about 8 miles in just under an hour. For the time, that was impressively fast, about double the speed of walking. It was a brilliant, if slightly awkward, solution to the horse crisis. It was a personal, human-powered vehicle that didn't need expensive food. Early adopters were mostly wealthy, adventurous young men who enjoyed zipping through parks and along city streets, probably turning a lot of heads in the process. However, the draisine wasn't exactly a runaway success. It was heavy, difficult to balance, and could only really be used on well-maintained paths. On cobblestone streets, it was a bone-shaking nightmare. In many cities, authorities even banned them from sidewalks because they were a menace to pedestrians. It was a fascinating novelty, a glimpse into the future of personal transport. But it was clear that the design needed some serious improvements before it could truly change the world. It was a first step, a crucial one, but the bicycle's evolution was just getting started. The next major leap forward came from France a few decades later. The problem with the draisine was obvious. Your feet got tired and dirty. The solution? Add pedals. But where? Around the 1860s, a French father and son duo of blacksmiths, Pierre and Ernest Michaud, had a brilliant idea. They decided to attach pedals directly to the axle of the front wheel. This created what became known as the velocipede, or more informally, the bone shaker. And let me tell you, it earned that nickname. These machines were built with stiff iron frames and wooden wheels with iron tires. Riding one on the rough roads of the 19th century was an intensely jarring experience. Every single bump and pebble on the road was transferred directly up your spine. Despite the discomfort, the velocipede was a sensation. Riding schools popped up, and for the first time, people were truly riding a two-wheeled machine instead of just pushing it. But the design had a fundamental limitation. Because the pedals were attached directly to the front wheel, your speed was limited by how fast you could pedal and the size of that wheel. To go faster, you needed a bigger wheel. This simple principle of physics led to one of the most iconic and frankly terrifying designs in bicycle history, the penny farthing, also known as the high wheeler. These bikes, which emerged in the 1870s, were a spectacle. They had a gigantic front wheel that could be over 5 feet tall, and a tiny little wheel in the back for stability. The rider perched precariously on top, pedaling furiously. They were fast, They were elegant in a way, but they were incredibly dangerous. A small rock or a sudden stop could send the rider flying headfirst over the handlebars in a move grimly known as taking a header. Because of the height and danger, penny farthing riding was almost exclusively a sport for daring, athletic young men of a certain class. It wasn't a practical vehicle for the average person. The bicycle was still more of a high-risk hobby than a form of mass transportation. The real revolution, the moment the bicycle became a tool for the masses, happened in the mid-1880s. This is when all the pieces finally came together to create what we now recognize as the modern bicycle. An English inventor named John Kemp Starley unveiled his Rover safety bicycle in 1885. It was a game changer. Instead of a giant front wheel, the Rover had two wheels of roughly the same size. The rider sat much lower and further back between the wheels, making it far more stable and safe, hence the name. But the true genius was the chain drive. The pedals were no longer on the wheel. They turned a crank, which, via a chain, powered the rear wheel. This was a monumental breakthrough. It meant speed was no longer tied to the size of the front wheel. You could now use gears to travel much faster and more efficiently. Ever wonder how we got from clunky, awkward contraptions to the sleek, efficient bikes we ride today? Let's turn back the clock to a pivotal moment in history. A time when a simple innovation would forever change the way we move, live, and even dress. Welcome back to our journey through the story of the bicycle. If you recall from our last episode, the earliest bicycle-like machines were, to put it mildly, a bit of a workout. The Draisian, or running machine, had no pedals. You literally had to push yourself along with your feet, like a toddler on a balance bike, but with a lot more wood and iron. It was a novelty, sure, but it wasn't exactly a revolution in personal transport. For real change, we needed a new idea. And in the 1860s, that idea finally arrived: pedals. Imagine this, it's the 1860s. The world is buzzing with steam power and industrial innovation. Amidst all this, a French father-son duo, Pierre and Ernest Michaud, are running a workshop that builds baby carriages. One day, a customer brings in an old Draisian for repair. As the story goes, Ernest was tinkering with it, and it sparked an idea. Why not attach cranks and pedals directly to the hub of the front wheel? It was a simple concept, but it was absolutely groundbreaking. With this modification, the rider could now propel the machine forward without their feet ever touching the ground. This new machine was called the velocipede, which literally means fast foot in Latin, and fast it was, at least compared to its predecessors. It was a marvel of its time, made almost entirely of wood, with iron-banded tires like a stripped-down wagon wheel. The pedals were fixed to the enormous front wheel, which also handled the steering. The back wheel was smaller, just there for balance. This design, while revolutionary, had a few, let's call them quirks, the most famous of which earned the velocipede its unforgettable nickname, the Bone Shaker. Riding one of these on the cobblestone streets of Paris or London was an adventure in vibration. With no suspension and those hard iron tires, every single bump, crack, and stone in the road was transferred directly up through the wooden frame and into the rider's body. It was a rattling, jarring, teeth-chattering experience. You didn't just ride the Bone Shaker, you survived it. Despite the discomfort, the Bone Shaker craze exploded across Europe and America. For the first time, a human-powered vehicle was commercially viable. Riding academies, called velocipede rinks, popped up everywhere, much like skating rinks today. These indoor arenas provided a smooth surface for people to learn how to ride without braving the treacherous city streets. They became social hubs, places to see and be seen. Young men would show off their skills, trying to master the difficult art of balancing, pedaling, and steering all at once. It wasn't easy. The direct drive system meant that the faster you wanted to go, the faster you had to pedal. Going uphill was a Herculean task, and going downhill was a terrifying test of nerve, as there were often no effective brakes. You either backpedaled furiously or just held on for dear life. The Bone Shaker was more than just a new toy. It was a symbol of modernity and progress. It represented a new kind of freedom. For a young man in the 1860s, Owning a velocipede was like owning a sports car today. It was a status symbol, a ticket to adventure. It allowed for a level of personal mobility that was previously unimaginable without a horse. You could travel further and faster on your own power than ever before. This wasn't just about getting from point A to point B. It was about the thrill of the ride, the feeling of speed and self-reliance. But what about women? The Victorian era was a time of strict social codes and even stricter clothing. The long, heavy skirts and corsets that were standard fashion made riding a bone shaker nearly impossible, not to mention scandalous. The act of straddling the machine was considered unladylike. However, the desire for freedom is a powerful force. Some daring women defied convention, opting for modified, shorter skirts or even controversial bloomer outfits to be able to ride. This was one of the very first instances where a piece of technology began to subtly challenge and reshape fashion and social norms for women. The bone shaker planted a seed. It hinted at a future where women could have the same freedom of movement as men, a theme that would become much more prominent with the next evolution of the bicycle. The manufacturing of bone shakers also reflected the spirit of the age. Companies like the Coventry Sewing Machine Company in England, facing a downturn in their primary business, pivoted to producing velocipedes. This shift helped establish cities like Coventry as major hubs for bicycle manufacturing for decades to come. The bone shakers spurred innovation in metalworking and mass production techniques. Each builder tried to improve upon the design, making them lighter, stronger, or slightly less bone shaking. However, like many fads, the initial craze for the bone shaker eventually fizzled out. The machines were expensive, difficult to master, and incredibly uncomfortable for any real-world travel. The novelty wore off, and many velocipede rinks. Have you ever wondered how we got from clunky bone-shaking machines to the sleek, efficient bicycles we know today? Our story begins in the 19th century, a time of incredible innovation and social change. The bicycle wasn't just a new way to get around. It was a revolution on two wheels. It offered a taste of freedom and independence that was previously unimaginable for many, especially women. It changed how people lived, worked, and even how they dressed. From the bustling streets of rapidly growing cities to the quiet country lanes, the bicycle started a journey that would reshape society in ways no one could have predicted. So let's pedal back in time and explore the fascinating story of the bicycle. A story of social mobility, newfound leisure, and subtle but powerful shifts in fashion and freedom. Before the smooth riding bikes we're familiar with, there was a rather bizarre-looking contraption that captured the imagination of the public, the penny farthing. Picture this, a gigantic front wheel, sometimes over 5 feet tall, paired with a tiny, almost comical rear wheel. The name itself comes from the British coins of the era, the large penny and the much smaller farthing. This design wasn't just for show. The huge front wheel, with the pedals attached directly to its hub, meant that one rotation of the pedals could cover a massive distance. This was the key to achieving unprecedented speeds. Riding a penny farthing was a statement. It was a spectacle. These machines, also known as high-wheelers, were the supercars of their day, symbols of athletic prowess and daring. So, who were these daring riders? Mostly they were young, athletic, and affluent men. Owning a penny farthing was not cheap, and mastering it required skill, balance, and a good dose of courage. Think about it. You were perched precariously high above the ground with no brakes to speak of and traveling on uneven cobblestone streets. A simple bump in the road could send you flying over the handlebars in what was grimly known as taking a header. Despite the risks, bicycle clubs sprang up across Europe and America. These clubs organized races and long-distance tours, turning cycling into a popular spectator sport. The riders, dressed in their club uniforms, became local celebrities, pushing the limits of speed and endurance. They were the pioneers, the thrill-seekers who embraced this new technology and showcased its potential to a fascinated public. Riding a penny farthing wasn't just about getting from point A to point B. It was an experience, a performance. The sheer height of the machine gave the rider a commanding view of their surroundings, literally placing them above the crowd. This sense of elevation and speed was intoxicating. However, the design had significant drawbacks. Mounting and dismounting were tricky maneuvers that required practice. And as we mentioned, the danger was very real. The slightest mistake could lead to a serious fall. This inherent risk limited the penny farthing's appeal to a niche group of adventurous men. Women, constrained by the long, heavy skirts of the Victorian era, were almost entirely excluded from this high-wheeling world. It was simply impossible and considered improper for them to ride such a machine. The penny farthing era, though relatively short, was a crucial chapter in the bicycle's evolution. It pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible in personal transportation. It established cycling as a form of sport and leisure, not just utility. The spectacle of the high-wheeler captivated the public and fueled the desire for a better, safer bicycle. Innovators and engineers saw the potential but also recognized the limitations. The demand was growing for a machine that was accessible to everyone: men, women, the elderly, and children. The penny farthing, with its blend of speed and spectacle, was the daring and slightly dangerous teenager of the bicycle family. Its successor would need to be more sensible, more practical, and ultimately more revolutionary. The fashion of the time was completely at odds with the practicality of riding a penny farthing. Men wore formal suits, often made of heavy wool, which were restrictive and hot. Special cycling attire began to emerge, featuring tighter-fitting jackets and knickerbockers, short trousers that gathered at the knee. This was a radical departure from the long trousers of the day and was sometimes seen as scandalous. It was a subtle but clear sign that this new activity was powerful enough to influence long-standing social norms about dress. For the very few women who dared to try cycling, the challenges were even greater. They might try riding tricycles, which were more stable, but the idea of women propelling themselves on any kind of vehicle was still a novelty. The legacy of the penny farthing is not just in its iconic silhouette, it was a catalyst for change. It sparked a cycling craze that paved the way for the next major innovation, the safety bicycle. This new design, which appeared in the late 1880s, featured two wheels of equal size, a chain-driven rear wheel, and a much lower, safer frame. Suddenly, cycling was no longer the exclusive domain of daring young men. The safety bicycle was accessible, manageable, and safe for everyone. This was the true beginning of the bicycle's impact on social mobility. People could now travel further and faster for work or pleasure, expanding their personal horizons in ways they had never been able to before. It was the safety bicycle that truly set women free. Hello there! We're pedaling back in time to explore a machine that did more than just get us from A to B. It reshaped society, redefined freedom, and even changed the clothes on our backs. This is the story of the bicycle. Before the sleek, lightweight bikes we know today, there was a wild and wonderful evolution. It all started in the early 19th century with the draisine or running machine. Imagine a wooden frame with two wheels and a handlebar, but no pedals. You literally had to run along the ground to move. It was clumsy, impractical for most, and seen more as a novelty for wealthy gentlemen. It was a start, but hardly a revolution. Then came the 1860s and the velocipede, more famously known as the bone shaker. This was the first machine to feature pedals attached directly to the front wheel. Why bone shaker? Well, with its wooden frame and iron-banded wheels riding over cobblestone streets, you can imagine the ride was anything but smooth. It was a jarring, rattling experience, but it was a massive leap forward. For the first time, you could propel yourself without your feet touching the ground. Still, it was a physically demanding machine, mostly a toy for athletic young men in urban centers. The Victorian era's obsession with progress and, let's be honest, a bit of showmanship led to the next iconic design, the penny farthing, or high-wheeler. You know the one, a gigantic front wheel and a tiny one in the back. The logic was simple. The larger the front wheel, the farther you could travel with a single rotation of the pedals. These bikes were fast, reaching impressive speeds for the time. But they were also incredibly dangerous. Sitting perched several feet in the air, a small bump in the road could send the rider flying headfirst over the handlebars, a mishap grimly known as taking a header. This made the penny farthing an exclusive club for daring, athletic young men. It was a symbol of masculine bravado, a spectacle of speed and risk that excluded women, and the less adventurous almost entirely. The high-wheeler was a marvel of engineering, but it wasn't a vehicle for the people. The real game changer, the moment the bicycle truly started to democratize transportation, arrived in the 1880s with the safety bicycle. On the surface, it looked less dramatic than the penny farthing. It had two wheels of equal size, a design that seemed almost like a step backward. But this machine held the keys to the future. Its genius lay in a simple yet revolutionary innovation: the chain drive. By connecting the pedals to a crank and then to the rear wheel with a chain, designers could achieve speed without a giant, precarious front wheel. This meant the bike was lower to the ground, easier to mount, and infinitely safer to ride. Suddenly, the fear of taking a header was gone. The safety bicycle wasn't just a new model, it was a new philosophy. It prioritized accessibility and comfort over pure, reckless speed. This is where our story really accelerates. With the arrival of the safety bicycle, a whole new world opened up. It wasn't just for daring young men anymore. Women, older people, and even children could now ride with confidence. The bicycle became a tool for everyone. For the working class, it was a ticket to social and economic mobility. A factory worker could now live farther from their job, escaping crowded city centers for more affordable housing in the suburbs. It expanded their world, giving them access to new opportunities and a greater sense of control over their lives. A 10-mile journey that was once a long walk became a manageable bike ride. The bicycle was, for many, the first taste of personal, affordable transportation. And the impact on... Have you ever thought about how a simple machine with two wheels could spark a revolution? It sounds dramatic, but for women at the end of the 19th century, the bicycle was exactly that. It wasn't just a new way to get around. It was a vehicle for freedom, a catalyst for social change, and a silent revolutionary that reshaped their world in ways no one could have predicted. Today, we're going to pedal back in time and explore the incredible story of how the bicycle empowered women and helped pave the way for a new era of independence. Before the bicycle rolled onto the scene, a woman's world was often quite small. Her sphere was largely confined to the home and the immediate neighborhood. Long-distance travel was complicated, expensive, and almost always required a male escort. A respectable woman simply didn't wander off on her own. Social visits, errands, and any form of recreation were limited by how far she could comfortably walk or her family's ability to afford a horse and carriage. It was a life of short leashes and limited horizons. But then, the safety bicycle arrived in the 1880s and 1890s. Unlike the clumsy, dangerous high-wheelers that came before, this new design was lower to the ground, easier to balance and accessible to everyone, including women. Suddenly, the world opened up. Imagine the thrill. For the first time, a woman could, under her own power, travel miles from her home. She could visit friends in another town, explore the countryside, or simply enjoy the exhilarating feeling of speed and movement. This newfound mobility was intoxicating. It was a taste of personal autonomy that had been denied to women for centuries. The bicycle gave them control over their own journeys, both literally and metaphorically. They no longer had to wait for a chaperone or ask for permission to go somewhere. They could just get on their bike and go. This simple act was a profound declaration of independence. It was a quiet rebellion on two wheels, and society was definitely taking notice. Of course, this new freedom didn't come without a fight. Many people were scandalized. Critics, mostly men, warned of all sorts of dangers. They claimed that cycling was unladylike, that it would make women too masculine, and they even concocted bizarre medical theories about the harm it could cause to the female body. Doctors gravely warned of a condition they called bicycle face, a supposed affliction where the strain of cycling would give women a permanently strained and haggard expression. It sounds ridiculous to us now, but it was a very real attempt to use fear and pseudoscience to keep women in their place. But the wheels of progress were already turning, and there was no stopping them. One of the most visible changes the bicycle brought was in fashion. Let's be honest, you can't exactly ride a bike in a massive Victorian gown with a tight corset and a dozen petticoats. It's just not practical. The bicycle forced a radical rethink of women's clothing. The corset, a symbol of female restriction for centuries, began to loosen its grip literally. Skirts became shorter, less voluminous, and in a truly shocking development, some daring women began wearing bloomers or divided skirts. These were essentially baggy trousers and they caused an absolute uproar. To the establishment, bloomers were a scandalous rejection of traditional femininity. But for the women who wore them, they were a symbol of liberation. They chose practicality over propriety, freedom of movement over the confines of convention. The bicycle wasn't just changing how women moved. It was changing how they dressed and, by extension, how they saw themselves. This newfound mobility also had a massive impact on social interactions. The bicycle became a tool for courtship. Young men and women could now go on cycling dates, escaping the stuffy, heavily chaperoned environment of the Victorian parlor. This offered a degree of privacy and informal interaction that was previously unheard of. It allowed couples to get to know each other in a more natural way, away from the prying eyes of their elders. Cycling clubs popped up everywhere, creating new social networks where women could meet people and form friendships based on a shared interest, rather than just family connections. It expanded their social circles and gave them a sense of belonging to a modern, active community. Beyond leisure and socializing, the bicycle had real economic implications. It gave women more independence in their work lives. A teacher, a nurse, or a shop assistant could now live further from her job, expanding her employment opportunities. She could travel to work more quickly and reliably, giving her more control over her own schedule and finances. This economic freedom was a crucial step towards overall equality. The bicycle was, in essence, a personal transportation revolution that helped break down the geographic and economic barriers that had held so many women back. It empowered them to become more active participants in the public and economic spheres. When you look at the big picture, the bicycle was so much more than a simple machine. It was a powerful symbol. Again, we're taking a ride back in time to explore an invention that did more than just get us from A to B. It reshaped society, redefined leisure, and even changed the clothes on our backs. We're talking about the incredible story of the bicycle. Before the late 19th century, personal transportation was a luxury. If you weren't wealthy enough to own a horse and carriage, your world was limited by how far your own 2 feet could carry you. Life was local, and opportunities were often confined to your immediate neighborhood. But then, this seemingly simple machine, a frame with 2 wheels and a chain, rolled onto the scene and changed everything. The first bicycles, like the high-wheeled penny farthing, were more of an extreme sport for daring young men. They were difficult to mount, dangerous to ride, and definitely not for everyone. But the invention of the safety bicycle in the 1880s was a game-changer. With its 2 equally sized wheels, chain drive, and pneumatic tires, it was stable, comfortable, and accessible. Suddenly the world opened up. For the working class, the bicycle was a revolution in social mobility. It meant a factory worker could live further from their job, in a less crowded, more affordable area. It meant they could travel to find better work, expanding their economic horizons beyond their immediate vicinity. A trip that once took hours of walking could now be done in a fraction of the time. This wasn't just about convenience. It was about opportunity and a newfound sense of control over one's life. But the bicycle's impact wasn't just practical. It was also about fun. It ushered in a new era of leisure. For the first time, people could easily escape the city smoke on a weekend and explore the countryside. Cycling clubs popped up everywhere, bringing people from different social backgrounds together with a shared passion. The bicycle craze swept the nation. It was a healthy, affordable way to socialize, explore, and simply enjoy the feeling of wind in your hair. It introduced a new concept to many: travel for pleasure. And speaking of wind in your hair, let's talk about what people were wearing, or rather, what they couldn't wear while cycling. This is where the bicycle story takes a fascinating turn and becomes a powerful symbol of women's emancipation. Imagine trying to ride a bicycle in the typical Victorian attire: a floor-length dress, multiple heavy petticoats, and a tightly laced corset that restricted breathing and movement. It was impractical, uncomfortable, and downright dangerous. A chain could easily snag the fabric, leading to terrible accidents. It became glaringly obvious that fashion had to change if women were going to embrace this new freedom. Enter the bloomer. These were baggy, full-length trousers, gathered at the ankle and worn under a shorter skirt or tunic. They weren't a new invention, but the bicycle gave them a new purpose and propelled them into the mainstream. The debate that followed was intense. To its supporters, bloomers represented common sense, health, and freedom. They allowed women to move and breathe freely, to participate in this exciting new activity without being hindered by their clothes. But to critics, bloomers were scandalous. They were seen as an attack on traditional femininity and the established social order. Newspapers were filled with cartoons mocking new women in their cycling outfits, and preachers condemned the attire from their pulpits. The bloomer wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was a political statement. It challenged the very idea that women should be delicate, decorative figures confined to the home. By choosing to wear bloomers, women were asserting their right to comfort, to mobility, and to participate in public life on their own terms. The corset was another casualty of the cycling craze. How could you pedal up a hill when your lungs were being crushed by whalebone and steel? Women began abandoning these restrictive undergarments in favor of more practical options. This shift wasn't just about comfort, it was a profound physical liberation. For centuries, the corset had symbolized a woman's constricted role in society. Casting it aside was a powerful act of rebellion. The bicycle, therefore, became an engine of freedom. It gave women an unprecedented level of independence. They could travel unchaperoned, meet friends, and explore the world on their own. This newfound mobility scared a lot of people who were comfortable with the old social hierarchy. They worried that if women could ride wherever they wanted, what else might they decide to do? Vote? Work? Demand equal rights? As it turns out, they were right to worry. Many leaders of the women's suffrage movement were avid cyclists who saw a direct link between the physical freedom of cycling and the political freedom they were fighting for. So, the next time you hop on a bicycle, take a moment to appreciate its incredible legacy. It's more than just a simple machine. Hello everyone, today we're taking a journey back in time to explore the story of one of the most revolutionary inventions in modern history. No, it's not the steam engine or the light bulb, but something you might have in your garage right now, the bicycle. This simple two-wheeled machine did more than just get people from point A to point B. It fundamentally reshaped society, sparked social change, and even altered the clothes on our backs. So, hop on, and let's pedal through the fascinating history of the bicycle. Our story begins in the early 19th century with a rather clumsy-looking contraption called the Draisine, or running machine. Invented by German Baron Karl von Drey, this wooden scooter had no pedals. You just pushed off the ground with your feet. It was awkward and inefficient, but it planted a seed. For the first time, people envisioned a form of personal mechanical transport that didn't rely on a horse. It was a novelty for the wealthy, a quirky toy for leisurely strolls in the park. But the real revolution was still decades away. Things got a bit more exciting and a lot more dangerous with the arrival of the velocipede or bone shaker in the 1860s. This was the first machine with pedals, but they were attached directly to the front wheel. Riding one on cobblestone streets was, as the nickname suggests, a bone-shaking experience. It was heavy, hard to steer, and required a good deal of strength. Still, it was a step forward, a hint of the speed and freedom that was to come. Factories in France and England started producing them, and the first bicycle craze began. Then came the iconic, almost cartoonish high-wheel bicycle, also known as the penny farthing. In the 1870s, that massive front wheel wasn't just for show. The larger the wheel, the farther you could travel with a single rotation of the pedals. These machines were fast, but they were also incredibly perilous. Mounting and dismounting required athletic skill, and a sudden stop could send the rider flying headfirst over the handlebars in what was grimly cold. Taking a header. Because of the danger and the cost, the penny farthing remained a status symbol for athletic, affluent young men. It was the extreme sport of its day, with clubs and races forming, but it was far from being a vehicle for the masses. The revolution needed one more crucial innovation. That breakthrough arrived in the 1880s with the safety bicycle. This is the design we recognize today. Two wheels of the same size, a chain-driven rear wheel, and a diamond-shaped frame. It was lower to the ground, easier to ride, and infinitely safer than the high-wheeler. The invention of the pneumatic tire by John Boyd Dunlop a few years later made the ride smoother and more comfortable than ever before. Suddenly, the bicycle wasn't just a toy for daring young men. It was a practical, affordable, and accessible mode of transportation for almost everyone. This is where our story truly accelerates. With the safety bicycle, personal mobility exploded. For the first time, working-class people could live farther from their jobs, escaping the crowded, often unsanitary conditions of inner cities. The bicycle gave them the freedom to explore the countryside on their days off, a luxury previously reserved for the wealthy who could afford a horse and carriage. It was a vehicle of liberation, expanding personal horizons and giving people a newfound sense of independence and control over their own lives. This wasn't just transportation. It was a ticket to a new way of living. Perhaps the most profound impact of the bicycle was on women. In the Victorian era, women's lives were heavily restricted, both by social norms and by their clothing. Long, heavy skirts and tight corsets made physical activity nearly impossible. But how could you ride a bicycle in a corset? You couldn't. Women began demanding more practical clothing. Out went the restrictive corsets and heavy skirts, and in came rational dress, including bloomers or divided skirts. This change in fashion was more than just about comfort. It was a powerful statement. The bicycle gave women unprecedented freedom of movement. They could travel unchaperoned, meet friends, and participate in recreational activities on their own terms. Suffragist Susan B. Anthony famously said the bicycle had done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. It gave them a literal and figurative vehicle for their journey toward equality. As the bicycle became a part of everyday life, it naturally pedaled its way into the pages of literature and art. In novels and poems from the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the bicycle often appears as a symbol of modernity, youth, and personal freedom. Think of H.G. Wells' characters cycling through the English countryside, filled with optimism for the future. The bicycle represented a break from the old, rigid Victorian world and a ride into a new, more dynamic century. It symbolized a quiet rebellion against convention, a simple machine that empowered individuals to chart their own course, both on the road and in their lives. It was the gentle whir of wheels heralding a profound social shift. Today, the bicycle continues to be a powerful force. In an age of traffic jams and environmental concerns, it offers a clean, healthy, and efficient alternative. From city bike share programs to the global passion for competitive cycling, its legacy endures. The bicycle reminds us that sometimes the simplest inventions can have the most far-reaching consequences. It's a story of innovation, freedom, and the incredible power of two wheels to change the world. It's a testament to human ingenuity and our enduring desire to move forward. Hello there! Today, we're taking a fascinating ride back in time to explore how the humble bicycle did more than just get people from point A to point B. It completely reshaped society, empowering social mobility, creating new forms of leisure, and even influencing fashion and personal freedom. So buckle up, or rather, get ready to pedal as we dive into the incredible story of the bicycle. Before the late 19th century, your world was pretty much limited to how far your own 2 feet could carry you, unless you were wealthy enough to own a horse and carriage. For the working class, this meant life was confined to a small radius around home and work. But then, the safety bicycle rolled onto the scene around the 1880s. With its 2 wheels of the same size, a chain-driven rear wheel, and pneumatic tires, it was a game-changer. Suddenly, an affordable and efficient mode of personal transportation was available to the masses. Imagine the sheer liberation. For the first time, a factory worker could afford to travel miles outside their crowded city neighborhood on a Sunday. They could visit relatives in a nearby town, explore the countryside, or simply enjoy a sense of freedom and movement they'd never known before. This wasn't just about travel. It was about expanding one's horizons both literally and figuratively. The bicycle became a symbol of independence and upward mobility. It gave people access to new job opportunities further from home and connected rural and urban communities in a way that was previously unimaginable for the average person. It was a quiet revolution on two wheels. This newfound mobility also had a profound impact on social structures, especially for women. In the Victorian era, women's lives were heavily restricted. Their clothing, like corsets and heavy long skirts, was cumbersome and impractical for almost any physical activity. But how could you ride a bicycle in a corset? You couldn't, not comfortably anyway. The desire to cycle pushed a major shift in women's fashion. Rational dress reformers, who had been advocating for more practical clothing for years, finally found a mainstream reason for their cause. Enter the bloomer. These loose-fitting trousers, gathered at the ankle, were scandalous at the time but perfect for cycling. Women who dared to wear them were often met with ridicule, but they were also pioneers, trading restrictive fashion for freedom of movement. As more women took up cycling, hemlines began to rise, and corsets were gradually abandoned in favor of more comfortable undergarments. This wasn't just about fashion. It was a powerful statement. By choosing to ride a bicycle and wear practical clothing, women were challenging societal norms and claiming their right to participate in public life and physical activity. The bicycle became a powerful engine for the women's suffrage movement, with activists like Susan B. Anthony famously stating that it had done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. The bicycle didn't just change how people traveled and dressed. It also changed how they spent their free time. Before the bike, leisure was often a passive or localized activity. But with the rise of cycling, a whole new world of active social recreation opened up. The weekend, which was a relatively new concept for the working class, suddenly had a purpose beyond just rest. It was time to go for a ride. This led to one of the most charming developments in the bicycle's history, the birth of the cycling club. All across Europe and America, groups of friends, colleagues, and neighbors began forming clubs dedicated to their shared passion. These weren't just about serious racing. They were social hubs. On Saturday and Sunday mornings, dozens of cyclists, all dressed in their club uniforms, would gather for organized rides into the countryside. These outings were a fantastic spectacle. Imagine a long procession of cyclists pedaling along country lanes, stopping for picnics in sun-dappled fields, or gathering at a rustic country inn for lunch and a refreshing drink. It was a chance to escape the noise and grime of the industrial city, to breathe fresh air, and to enjoy the simple pleasure of good company and gentle exercise. The cycling club turned the bicycle from a solitary vehicle into a tool for community building. These clubs fostered a strong sense of camaraderie. Members shared tips on bike maintenance, planned multi-day tours, and organized social events like dances and dinners. They created their own newsletters and magazines, celebrating their adventures and promoting the cycling lifestyle. For many, the cycling club became a central part of their social life, a place where friendships were forged and a sense of belonging was cultivated. It was a perfect blend of sport, tourism, and social networking, long before the internet ever existed. The bicycle's influence extended even further, subtly shaping the landscape around it. The demand for smoother riding surfaces from the growing number of cyclists was a major factor in the Good Roads movement. Cycling clubs became powerful lobbying groups, petitioning local and national governments for better road infrastructure. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we're hopping on a journey back in time to explore an invention that quietly yet radically reshaped our world. It's not a steam engine nor a telegraph, but something much more personal, something that gave us a taste of freedom and a new sense of speed. We're talking about the humble bicycle. Before the late 19th century, if you wanted to get around, your options were pretty limited. You could walk, ride a horse if you were well off, or cram into a carriage or an early train. Your world was often confined to how far your own 2 feet could carry you. But then, this ingenious two-wheeled contraption started rolling into the mainstream, and everything began to change. The earliest versions, like the German Draisine or running machine from 1817, were a far cry from what we know today. Imagine a wooden frame with 2 wheels but no pedals. You literally had to push yourself along with your feet. It was clumsy, awkward, and mostly a novelty for the wealthy. But the seed of an idea was planted. Personal, human-powered transportation. Fast forward a few decades, and the velocipede, or bone shaker, arrived in the 1860s. This time it had pedals, but they were attached directly to the front wheel. Riding one on cobblestone streets was, as the nickname suggests, a bone-rattling experience. It was heavy, difficult to steer, and took a lot of muscle. Still, it was a step forward. For the first time, you could propel yourself without your feet touching the ground. This was the moment the dream of efficient personal transport started to feel real. Then came the age of the magnificent and slightly terrifying penny farthing in the 1870s. With its enormous front wheel and tiny rear one, it was all about speed. The larger the wheel, the farther you went with one pedal rotation. These machines were fast, but they were also dangerous. A sudden stop could send the rider flying headfirst over the handlebars, a move grimly called taking a header. Because of the height and the skill required, riding a penny farthing was almost exclusively a young, athletic, and affluent man's game. It was a status symbol, a thrilling sport, but not a practical tool for the masses. It was a spectacle, not a solution. The real revolution, the moment the bicycle truly became a vehicle for the people, was the invention of the safety bicycle in the 1880s. This design is the direct ancestor of the bike we know and love today. It had two wheels of equal size, a chain-driven rear wheel, and pneumatic tires, which made the ride smoother and more comfortable. Suddenly, cycling was no longer a dangerous daredevil act. It was accessible, it was safe, and it was affordable. And this is where our story of social mobility really takes off. For the average worker, the safety bicycle was a game changer. It expanded their world overnight. A 5-mile journey, which would take an hour and a half to walk, could now be covered in just 30 minutes. This meant people could live further from their workplaces in the city centers, escaping the crowded and often unsanitary conditions for more affordable housing in the newly forming suburbs. The bicycle gave the working class a new radius of life, a new geography of opportunity. It wasn't just about commuting. The bicycle democratized leisure. On weekends, city dwellers could suddenly escape the smoke and grime of the industrial towns. They could ride out into the countryside, breathe fresh air, and have picnics. Cycling clubs popped up everywhere, bringing people from different social backgrounds together. It was a new, healthy, and exhilarating way to spend free time, and it wasn't reserved for the rich. It was a shared joy, a common ground on two wheels. Perhaps one of the most profound impacts of the bicycle was on women's freedom. In the Victorian era, women's lives were heavily restricted, both literally and figuratively. Their clothing, with tight corsets, heavy skirts, and bustles, was designed to be restrictive. But you can't ride a bike in a corset and a floor-length dress. The bicycle demanded a change. Women started wearing more practical attire, shorter skirts, divided skirts, and even bloomers, which were revolutionary and controversial at the time. This change in fashion was more than just about clothes. It was a symbol of a broader movement. The bicycle gave women an unprecedented level of independent mobility. They could travel unchaperoned, meet friends, and engage in public life in a way they never could before. Suffragist leader Susan B. Anthony famously said in 1896 that the bicycle had done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. It gave them a feeling of freedom and self-reliance. And the bicycle's impact didn't stop at personal freedom. It also became a vital tool for commerce and communication. Think about the postal service. Before bikes, postmen walked their routes, carrying heavy bags of letters. With a bicycle, they could cover more ground, faster, and with less physical strain. This meant mail, news, and information spread more quickly. Small businesses also saw the potential. Bakers, grocers, and delivery services began using cargo bikes to deliver goods directly to customers' homes. The bicycle became a quiet engine of the local economy, speeding up the flow of not just people, but also letters, parcels, and news. It connected communities in a new and efficient way. From a rich man's toy to a worker's chariot, from a fashion shifter to an engine of communication, the bicycle did so much more than just get us from A to B. It redrew the maps of our cities, redefined our weekends, challenged social norms, and gave millions a taste of personal freedom they'd never known. It's a beautiful example of how a simple invention can have a massive and lasting impact on society. It empowered individuals, connected communities, and quietly, pedal by pedal, helped roll us into the modern world. So next time you hop on a bike, whether it's for exercise, commuting, or just for fun, take a moment to appreciate the incredible legacy you're a part of. You're not just riding a bike, you're riding a piece of history, a symbol of freedom, mobility, and progress. Thanks so much for watching. What's your favorite bicycle memory? Let us know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Have you ever noticed the delivery person weaving through traffic on a bike, a stack of pizzas balanced precariously on the back? Or the courier with a satchel slung over their shoulder, zipping past cars to make a deadline? We often think of bicycles in terms of leisure, sport, or maybe our own commute. But for over a century, the bicycle has been something far more fundamental, an indispensable tool of labor, a silent engine of the urban economy. Let's rewind the clock. Imagine the bustling streets of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The air is thick with the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the rumble of early automobiles. In this chaotic urban landscape, a new hero emerges, swift and silent, the cyclist. For tradespeople, the bicycle was a revolution. Plumbers, electricians, and painters could now carry their tools and travel directly to a client's doorstep, bypassing the rigid schedules and routes of public trams. A carpenter could strap a saw and a toolbox to a reinforced frame and pedal across town, expanding their service area and, by extension, their income. This wasn't just about convenience. It was about economic empowerment. The bicycle gave skilled workers a new level of autonomy and efficiency, allowing them to compete and thrive in a rapidly growing city. Then there were the messengers, the original gig economy workers. Before text messages and emails, information traveled at the speed of paper. Telegraph boys on bicycles became a common sight, weaving through the urban maze to deliver urgent news. These weren't just kids on bikes. They were the vital conduits of commerce and personal communication. Wall Street relied on them to deliver stock updates. Newspapers used them to rush breaking stories to the press. A young cyclist with a strong pair of legs and a good sense of direction was a critical link in the city's information network. The bicycle gave them speed and agility that no other form of transport could match, making them the unsung heroes of a pre-digital world. Let's not forget the humble postman. In many towns, and especially in sprawling rural areas, the postie bike became an icon. Think about it. Delivering mail door to door, day in and day out, requires covering a lot of ground. Walking is slow and tiring. A vehicle is often impractical for stopping at every single house. A bicycle was the perfect solution. It allowed postal workers to carry heavy loads of letters and parcels while navigating suburban streets and country lanes with ease. These specially designed bikes, often with large baskets on the front and sturdy racks on the back, were built for endurance and reliability. They became a symbol of dependable service, a familiar and welcome sight in communities everywhere, connecting people one letter at a time. Across the globe, this story repeats itself in countless unique ways. In the Netherlands, the bakefiets or cargo bike has been a staple for generations. These three-wheeled workhorses with a large wooden or metal box at the front were used by bakers to deliver fresh bread, by grocers to transport produce, and by milkmen on their morning rounds. They are, in essence, a small pickup truck powered by pedals. In many parts of Asia, the bicycle is the backbone of street vending culture. Think of the mobile food stalls in Vietnam or Thailand, where an entire kitchen, a stove, ingredients, and utensils is ingeniously mounted onto a bicycle or tricycle. These vendors bring delicious, affordable food directly to the people, creating vibrant street life and supporting their families, all from the saddle of their mobile business. These aren't just bikes. They are entire livelihoods on wheels. The bicycle's role as a tool of labor also had a profound social impact. It offered a low-cost entry into the workforce. For someone without the means to afford a horse and cart, let alone a motorized vehicle, a bicycle was an attainable asset. It represented a ticket to employment, a path to self-sufficiency. It broke down geographical barriers, allowing people to seek work beyond their immediate neighborhood. This newfound mobility fostered a more dynamic and interconnected urban society. The bicycle quietly democratized transportation for the working class, giving them a measure of freedom and opportunity that was previously out of reach. It was a vehicle of social mobility in the most literal sense. Even today, in our hyper-connected digital age, the working bicycle is experiencing a major renaissance. A rise of app-based food delivery services has created a new army of bicycle couriers. These riders are now a ubiquitous feature of modern city life, ensuring we get our favorite meals delivered right to our door. They face the same challenges as their historical counterparts, navigating traffic, braving the weather, and racing against the clock. But now, their routes are guided by GPS, and their orders come through a smartphone. It's a modern twist on a century-old profession, proving the bicycle's enduring relevance as a tool for urban logistics. The technology has changed, but the fundamental principle remains the same: human power, two wheels, and a job to be done. Beyond food delivery, the cargo bike is also making a huge comeback, this time with an environmental focus. As cities become more congested and polluted, businesses are turning to e-cargo bikes, bicycles with electric assist motors, for last-mile deliveries. Major logistics companies are now using these bikes to deliver packages in dense urban cores, reducing their carbon footprint and navigating traffic jams more effectively. Local businesses, from florists to coffee roasters, are using them for local deliveries, building a green and community-focused brand. This modern movement shows that the working bike is not a relic of the past, but a key part of a sustainable future. It's a smart, clean, and efficient solution to a very modern problem. So, the next time you see a cyclist with a loaded rack or a branded delivery bag, take a moment to appreciate the legacy they represent. They are part of a long and proud history of working people who have used the simple, elegant power of the bicycle to build businesses, serve communities, and carve out a living. The working bicycle. Hello and welcome back to our channel. Have you ever paused to think about how a simple machine like the bicycle found its way into the hearts of artists and onto their canvases? It's more than just a mode of transport. It's a symbol, a muse, a beautiful blend of engineering and elegance. Today, we're going to pedal through the galleries of history and explore how the bicycle was captured in art, reflecting a world in motion and a society on the brink of change. From nostalgic posters to groundbreaking paintings, let's uncover the story of the bicycle in art. The late 19th and early 20th centuries were a whirlwind of innovation, and the bicycle was at the forefront. It was new, it was exciting, and it represented progress. Artists, always keen to capture the spirit of their time, were immediately drawn to it. Painters of the Belle Epoque, or the Beautiful Era, saw the bicycle as a perfect subject. It embodied modernity, speed, and a newfound sense of personal freedom that was sweeping across Europe and America. In their paintings, the bicycle wasn't just an object. It was a dynamic force, a character in the story of modern life. Think about the Impressionists and Post-Impressionists. Artists like Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec were masters of capturing the bustling energy of Parisian life. In his famous posters and lithographs, you can almost hear the whir of the wheels and the chatter of the crowds. Toulouse-Lautrec's work for bicycle manufacturers wasn't just advertising. It was art that celebrated the thrill of cycling. His dynamic lines and bold colors conveyed a sense of speed and excitement that made everyone want to hop on a bike. He captured the grace of the cyclist, the sleek geometry of the frame, and the sheer joy of movement. Another key artist was the French painter Jean Barrault, who was known for his detailed scenes of daily life in Paris. In his work, bicycles often appear weaving through the elegant boulevards, ridden by fashionable men and women. These paintings act as a time capsule, showing us exactly how the bicycle integrated into society. It wasn't just for sport. It was for commuting, for socializing, and for leisurely afternoon rides. Barrault's soft, realistic style gives these scenes a nostalgic, almost dreamlike quality, inviting us to step back in time and experience that golden age of cycling for ourselves. The bicycle also became a powerful symbol of women's emancipation. As women began to cycle, they shed their restrictive corsets and heavy skirts for more practical attire. Artists were quick to portray this new woman, independent, active, and mobile. These images were revolutionary. They showed women exploring the world on their own terms, breaking free from the constraints of the domestic sphere. The bicycle in these paintings and illustrations isn't just about leisure, it's about liberation. It represents a subtle but profound shift in social dynamics and fashion, all captured with the artist's gentle, observant eye. Let's not forget the world of graphic design and advertising posters. The turn of the century was the golden age of the poster, and the bicycle was a star subject. Artists like Jules Sherritt, often called the father of the modern poster, created vibrant, joyful images of women gracefully riding bicycles. These posters were everywhere, turning city streets into open-air art galleries. They used soft, warm colors and flowing lines to create an idealized, romantic vision of cycling. The bicycle was portrayed as elegant, sophisticated, and accessible to all, forever linking it with a sense of style and pleasure. The geometry of the bicycle itself was also a source of artistic inspiration. The clean lines of the frame, the perfect circles of the wheels, it was a study in form and function. This appealed to artists who were moving towards modernism and abstraction. The bicycle's structure offered a beautiful interplay of lines, curves, and negative space. Some artists focused on this mechanical beauty, deconstructing the bicycle into its essential geometric shapes. They saw it not just as a vehicle, but as a piece of moving sculpture, a perfect marriage of industrial design and aesthetic grace. This artistic fascination continued well into the 20th century. Futurists in Italy, obsessed with speed and technology, depicted cyclists as symbols of dynamic energy, blurring motion and machinery. Later, even surrealists like Salvador Dalí incorporated bicycles into their dreamlike landscapes, using them as strange and evocative symbols. From a simple tool for transportation, the bicycle had evolved into a complex and versatile motif in the art world, capable of representing everything from social progress to the inner workings of the subconscious mind. So, why does the image of the bicycle in art resonate with us so deeply even today? Perhaps it's the nostalgia. These paintings and posters capture a sense of optimism and simpler times. They remind us of the simple joy of a bike ride, the feeling of the wind in your hair, the freedom of the open road. The soft tones and gentle scenes create a sense of peace and longing for a past that seems both idyllic and gracefully modern. The bicycle in art is a timeless symbol of progress, freedom, and the beautiful, simple pleasures of life. Next time you see a vintage bicycle poster or a painting featuring a cyclist, take a closer look. You're not just seeing a machine, you're seeing a story. A story of social change, of new freedoms, of artistic innovation, and of the enduring human desire for movement and discovery. It's a testament to how a humble invention can capture the imagination and become a lasting icon of an era. The artists who painted them didn't just capture a moment. They captured a feeling that still inspires us today. Thank you so much for joining me on this artistic journey through the history of the bicycle. I hope it's given you a new appreciation for this wonderful machine and its place in our culture. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Ride on and see you in the next video. Hello everyone, and welcome back to our series on the fascinating story of the bicycle. If you've ever pictured a sunny day, a beachside path, and a bike with wide, sweeping handlebars, you're already familiar with today's star, the cruiser bicycle. It's more than just a bike. It's a symbol of leisure, style, and a fundamental shift in how we think about cycling. Let's rewind a bit. For decades, bicycle design was obsessed with one thing: speed. Racing bikes dominated the scene with their aggressive postures and lightweight frames. But as the 20th century rolled on, something changed. The post-war era, especially in America, brought newfound prosperity and a growing middle class with more leisure time. People weren't just commuting or competing anymore. They wanted to simply enjoy the ride. This is where the genius of manufacturers like Schwinn comes into play. They looked at the heavy-duty, balloon-tired paperboy bikes of the 1930s and saw potential. These bikes were built to be tough and comfortable, not fast. They had upright seating, wide saddles, and those signature fat tires that could glide over bumps with ease. Schwinn and others repackaged this utilitarian design, adding stylish flair like chrome accents, vibrant paint jobs, and swooping, elegant frames. They weren't selling transportation. They were selling an experience. Suddenly, the bicycle became an accessory for a relaxed lifestyle. The cruiser was perfect for a slow roll down the boardwalk, a gentle ride through the park, or a trip to the local soda fountain. It didn't demand special clothing or athletic prowess. You could ride it in your everyday clothes, a sundress, a pair of trousers, whatever felt comfortable. This was a democratization of cycling. It was no longer the domain of hardcore athletes. It was for everyone. The design itself tells a story. The wide, swept-back handlebars encourage you to sit up straight, take a deep breath, and look around. You're not hunched over, staring at the pavement ahead. You're part of the scenery. The coaster brakes, where you simply pedal backward to stop, made the bike incredibly simple and intuitive to use. There were no complex gears or handbrakes to master. It was pure, uncomplicated fun. This shift toward pleasure over performance had a huge impact. It cemented the bicycle's place in popular culture as a tool for recreation and relaxation. Think about classic beach movies or nostalgic TV shows set in the 50s and 60s. The cruiser is often right there, a key part of the aesthetic. It represented a carefree, idyllic vision of life. Even the names given to these bikes, like the Schwinn Phantom or the Black Phantom, evoked a sense of style and mystique. They were designed to be seen. People customized them, adding baskets, bells, and streamers. A cruiser wasn't just a machine. It was an extension of your personality. It was about slowing down and savoring the moment, a philosophy that feels more relevant today than ever. The rise of the cruiser wasn't just a trend in bike manufacturing. It was a reflection of a society that was beginning to value leisure and personal expression in new ways. It showed that the purpose of a machine could evolve from pure utility to pure joy. The focus on comfort and style made cycling accessible and appealing to a much broader audience, including many people who might have been intimidated by the more performance-oriented bikes of the era. And the cruiser's influence is still with us. From modern beach cruisers to comfortable city comfort bikes, the legacy of prioritizing a pleasant ride over pure speed lives on. It's a reminder that sometimes the journey itself is the destination, and the best way to enjoy it is at a relaxed, comfortable pace. It's the bike that tells you to slow down, look up, and enjoy the view. So the next time you see one of these classic, stylish bikes rolling by, you'll know it's not just a bicycle. It's a piece of history, a statement of philosophy, and a beautiful machine designed for one simple purpose: pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on this ride through history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for more stories about the incredible evolution of the bicycle. We'd love to have you with us. Until next time, ride safe and enjoy the journey. Do you remember it? That first taste of real freedom. It probably wasn't a driver's license or a first paycheck. For most of us, it was the moment we finally balanced on two wheels. The world suddenly opened up, bigger and more exciting than ever before. That right there is the magic of the bicycle in childhood, a story of wobbly starts, scraped knees, and the birth of independence. Before the mid-20th century, a bicycle wasn't just a toy. It was a luxury. It was a smaller version of an adult machine, often expensive and reserved for the children of wealthier families. But as manufacturing became more efficient after World War II, something incredible happened. Bicycles became accessible. They started appearing in suburban garages and backyards across the country, waiting to become a child's first vehicle. This shift transformed the bicycle from a status symbol into a rite of passage. Suddenly, learning to ride was something every kid did, and who can forget the process? The iconic training wheels giving us a false sense of stability. The helping hand of a parent, running alongside, promising not to let go, and then letting go. That heart-stopping wobble, the frantic pedaling, the inevitable tumble onto the grass or pavement. Ah, the scraped knee. It was the badge of honor for every aspiring cyclist. A little bit of antiseptic, a colorful bandage, and you were right back on the saddle, more determined than ever. Each fall wasn't a failure, it was a lesson in resilience. It taught us to get back up, shake it off, and try again. It was our first real encounter with the idea that practice, persistence, and a little bit of bravery could help us conquer a challenge. And then, a moment of triumph. The pedals turn, the wheels spin, and you're not wobbling anymore. You're gliding. You're flying! The wind is in your hair and a huge grin is plastered across your face. You look back and see your parent beaming with pride, growing smaller in the distance as you pedal away on your own. In that instant, you weren't just riding a bike. You were mastering a skill that unlocked a new dimension of your world. With this newfound mobility came a new kind of freedom. The bicycle expanded our universe from the backyard to the entire neighborhood. Suddenly, you could ride to a friend's house without asking for a lift. You could explore that mysterious cul-de-sac at the end of the street or race your friends to the corner store for a treat. The bike became our ticket to adventure, allowing us to create our own secret maps and routes. This wasn't just about fun and games. It was a crucial step in developing self-reliance. We learned to navigate our surroundings, to be aware of our environment, and to make our own decisions. Be home by dinner time was the only rule. That simple instruction gave us a boundary, but within that boundary, we were the captains of our own ships, or rather, the pilots of our own two-wheeled machines. We learned responsibility, time management, and the simple geography of our own community. The bicycle also became a social hub. Who remembers gathering with friends, a fleet of colorful bikes resting on kickstands or tossed on the lawn? Bikes were the centerpiece of neighborhood society. We'd customize them with spokey dokes, streamers, and baseball cards clipped to the frame to make that iconic clicking sound. These weren't just modes of transport. They were extensions of our personalities. From the rugged BMX for daredevil jumps to the classic cruiser with a basket, our bikes said something about who we were. These shared experiences, the group rides, the ramp building projects, the races down the block created bonds and memories that have lasted a lifetime. The bicycle was the vehicle for our first adventures, our first taste of independence, and some of our most cherished childhood friendships. It was more than just a toy. It was a tool for growing up. Even today, in a world filled with screens and digital distractions, the image of a child learning to ride a bike remains a powerful and timeless symbol. It represents that universal journey of learning, falling, and finally finding your balance, not just on two wheels, but in life itself. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest freedoms are the simplest ones. What was your first bike like? Share your memories in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories about learning to ride. Thanks so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this little trip down memory lane, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more stories. See you next time. We are in our next chapter. Today we're journeying back in time to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a period when a revolutionary machine was changing the world one pedal stroke at a time, the bicycle. But we're not just talking about the invention itself. We're going to explore how this two-wheeled wonder was sold to the world through the beautiful, captivating, and incredibly clever art of advertising posters. Imagine walking down the street in the 1890s. The world is getting faster, but it's still largely powered by horse and foot. Suddenly, you see a vibrant, colorful poster plastered on a wall. It depicts a person elegantly dressed, gliding effortlessly through a picturesque landscape on a sleek metallic frame. This wasn't just an ad. It was a window into a new kind of life. These posters were masterpieces of visual storytelling, designed to sell not just a machine, but a dream. Let's talk about elegance. Many of the earliest bicycle ads, especially from French artists like Jules Sherritt, are stunning examples of Art Nouveau. They feature graceful women in flowing dresses, their hair swept back by the breeze, looking utterly poised and sophisticated as they ride. The message was clear. Riding a bicycle wasn't a clumsy, strenuous activity. It was chic, modern, and the very height of fashion. Brands like Cleveland and Columbia used these images to position the bicycle as a status symbol, an accessory for the refined, forward-thinking individual. It wasn't just transport. It was a statement of class and taste. But elegance was only one part of the story. The other powerful theme was adventure. Posters often showed cyclists cresting hills with breathtaking views, exploring winding country roads, or even embarking on epic journeys. Look at the posters for Raleigh or Peugeot from this era. You'll see strong, capable men and women, smiling, looking invigorated by the open air. This tapped into a deep human desire for exploration and freedom. For city dwellers trapped in the routine of industrial life, the bicycle promised an escape. It offered a passport to the countryside, a way to experience nature and adventure on your own terms, without being tied to a train schedule or the pace of a horse. The ad sold the thrill of discovery, the joy of wind in your face, and the personal triumph of conquering a new path. And this brings us to one of the most powerful aspirational messages: freedom and independence. This was particularly revolutionary for women. Before the bicycle, a woman's mobility was often limited. But the posters showed a new reality. They depicted women riding alone or with friends, unchaperoned, confidently navigating their own journeys. This was a radical image for the time. Brands like Waverly Cycles featured ads with women looking directly at the viewer, bold and self-assured. The bicycle became a symbol of emancipation. It offered women a practical means of getting around for work, errands, or social calls, granting them an unprecedented level of autonomy. This wasn't just about selling a product. It was about selling a new vision of modern womanhood. Of course, the ads also had to address practical concerns. They highlighted technical innovations like pneumatic tires for a smoother ride, chain-driven mechanisms for greater speed, and lighter frames for easier handling. Posters would often include detailed illustrations of the bicycle's components, appealing to the more mechanically minded consumer. They'd boast about durability, speed, and reliability. Brands like Gladiator or Humber made sure to communicate that their machines were not just beautiful, but were also feats of modern engineering built to last and perform. The combination was brilliant. They sold the poetry of freedom and the prose of reliable technology all in one image. Let's not forget the power of celebrity and competition. As bicycle racing became a popular spectator sport, manufacturers were quick to feature racing champions in their advertisements. A poster featuring a famous cyclist victorious and covered in glory was a powerful endorsement. It told the public, our bicycle is the fastest, the strongest, the choice of champions. This created a sense of aspiration and excitement around the brands. It wasn't just about leisurely rides in the park anymore. It was about speed, performance, and the cutting edge of technology. Owning that brand of bicycle meant you were connected to that world of victory and athletic prowess. When you look at these posters collectively, you see a society in transition. They capture the optimism and excitement of the turn of the century. They show a world where technology is creating new possibilities for leisure, social connection, and personal freedom. The artists who created these posters weren't just advertisers. They were cultural influencers, shaping public perception and helping to weave the bicycle into the very fabric of modern life. They used color, composition, and symbolism to turn a piece of metal and rubber into an object of intense desire. These posters sold an experience. They sold the feeling of gliding past pedestrians, the joy of a shared adventure with a loved one, the pride of owning a beautiful modern machine, and the quiet revolution of personal mobility. They promised that with a bicycle, your world would become bigger, your life would become richer, and your spirit would become freer. It's a testament to their power that even today, over a century later, these vintage posters are collected as works of art, still radiating that original promise of elegance, adventure, and aspiration. They remind us that the bicycle was, and still is, so much more than just a way to get from one place to another. So next time you see a bicycle, think about its incredible journey. And think about the artists who, with ink and paper, helped convince the world to fall in love with it. Thank you so much for joining me on this ride through history. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next exploration. Ride on and see you next time. Ever walked into a bicycle repair shop? There's a unique smell, isn't there? A mix of grease, rubber, and something else ... the quiet hum of potential. Every bike hanging from a hook or clamped in a stand holds a story. Today, we're not just talking about bikes. We're talking about the revolutionary machine that changed everything from how we move to what we wear, and even how we see ourselves. This is the story of the bicycle, a tale of freedom on two wheels. Before the bicycle, your world was often defined by how far you could walk. Cities were dense, and the countryside could feel isolating. If you weren't wealthy enough to own a horse and carriage, your opportunities were limited by your own 2 feet. Then, in the 19th century, a strange and wonderful invention began to take shape. It started clunky, even dangerous, with names like the draisine or bone shaker. These early contraptions were more of a curiosity for the rich than a practical tool. But the idea had been planted: personal mechanical transportation. The real game changer arrived in the late 1880s with the safety bicycle. Suddenly, you had 2 wheels of the same size, a chain-driven rear wheel, and pneumatic tires. It was stable, efficient, and relatively affordable. This wasn't just a new toy. It was a ticket to a new life. A factory worker could now live in a more pleasant, affordable suburb and commute to their job in the city center. The distance between home, work, and community suddenly shrank. This was social mobility in its most literal form. The bicycle empowered the working class, giving them a freedom of movement previously unimaginable. It broadened their horizons, allowing them to seek better jobs, visit family in neighboring towns, or simply explore the world beyond their own street. And with this new mobility came a new concept: leisure. The weekend took on a whole new meaning. People didn't just use bikes to get to work, they used them for fun. The countryside, once a distant landscape, was now accessible for a Sunday picnic. Cycling clubs popped up everywhere, creating new social circles that crossed class lines. On a bicycle, a clerk and a craftsman were just 2 fellow cyclists enjoying the open road. It fostered a sense of community and shared adventure. The simple act of pedaling through a park or along a country lane became a popular pastime, a way to escape the grid of the industrial city and reconnect with nature and with each other. Perhaps one of the most profound impacts of the bicycle was on women's freedom. In the Victorian era, women's lives were heavily restricted, both physically and socially. Their clothing was a prime example. Heavy skirts, tight corsets, and bustles made movement difficult. You simply can't ride a bike in a corset and a floor-length dress. The bicycle demanded a change. Women began to adopt more practical clothing, like bloomers or divided skirts, which were scandalous at the time. This wasn't just a fashion statement. It was a declaration of independence. The bicycle gave women an unprecedented degree of autonomy. They could travel unchaperoned, meet friends, and participate in a physical activity that was both liberating and empowering. Suffragist leader Susan B. Anthony famously said the bicycle had done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. It gave them a taste of freedom and control over their own movement, which helped fuel the broader fight for women's rights. This brings us back to where we started, the quiet mechanic in the repair shop. As millions of these new machines filled the roads, a new profession was born. The bicycle mechanic became an essential figure in every community. These weren't grand industrialists. They were local craftspeople, the unsung heroes who kept the wheels of progress turning. Step into their world, and you see the tools of the trade: spoke wrenches, chain tools, truing stands. You feel the grit of the grease under your fingernails. There's a gentle rhythm to their work, the patient turning of a wrench, the soft hiss of air filling a tire, the satisfying click of a well-adjusted gear. The mechanic understands the intimate language of the bicycle. They can diagnose a problem from a faint clicking sound or a slight wobble. Their workshop is more than just a place of business. It's a hub of the cycling community. It's where you go for a fix, but also for advice, for a chat about the best local routes, or to share the story of your latest ride. They are the keepers of the bicycle's soul, ensuring that this simple machine can continue to provide joy, freedom, and utility to its rider. They don't just fix metal and rubber. They mend the connection between a person and their freedom. They repair the vehicle that carries our hopes, our errands, and our adventures. So the next time you see a bicycle, think about the incredible journey it represents. From a clunky toy for the wealthy to a powerful engine of social change. It broadened our world, redefined our weekends, liberated fashion, and gave a voice to the fight for equality. And behind it all, in a quiet workshop filled with the smell of oil and the promise of a smooth ride, is the mechanic. The humble artisan ensuring that this simple, beautiful machine can continue to do what it has always done best: move us forward. Thank you so much for joining me on this ride through history. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a like and consider subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the things that shape our world. Ride on, and see you in the next one. Hello and welcome back to our journey through the history of the bicycle. In last chapter, we're shifting gears to look at a topic that's more relevant today than ever before. The bicycle's role as a champion for the environment. Long before eco-friendly was a buzzword, the bicycle was already doing its part. As the Industrial Revolution chugged along, filling cities with smoke and the clatter of machinery, the bicycle offered a whisper-quiet alternative. Imagine the streets of the late 19th and early 20th centuries. While horse-drawn carriages left their own kind of pollution and the first automobiles began sputtering to life, the bicycle glided through it all, powered by nothing more than human energy. It was the original green machine. Think about it. No exhaust fumes, no engine noise, no reliance on fossil fuels. It was a personal vehicle that left virtually no footprint. While the world was racing towards faster, louder, and more resource-intensive modes of transport, the bicycle stood as a testament to simplicity and sustainability. It didn't demand massive infrastructure projects or pollute the air people breathed. It was, in its very design, a harmonious way to move through the world. This wasn't a conscious environmental movement back then, of course. People chose bicycles for their affordability, for the freedom they offered, and for the simple joy of riding. The environmental benefits were a happy side effect, a quiet revolution happening right under everyone's noses. It was a form of transport that connected people to their surroundings in a way a motorcar never could. You could hear the birds, smell the flowers, and feel the breeze. You were part of the environment, not just passing through it. As cities grew and became more congested, the bicycle's advantages became even clearer. While others were stuck in traffic, cyclists could navigate narrow streets and find clever shortcuts. The bike was efficient, not just in terms of energy, but in terms of space. A dozen bicycles could fit in the space taken up by a single car. This inherent efficiency is something urban planners are rediscovering today. In the mid-20th century, the automobile became king, and the bicycle was often relegated to a child's toy or a recreational hobby. The dream of the open road was paved with asphalt, and the hum of the engine became the soundtrack of progress. But the bicycle never truly went away. It waited patiently in the garage, a simple solution to a complex problem that was just over the horizon. Then came the environmental awakenings of the 1960s and 70s. As people began to understand the impact of pollution and our dependence on oil, the bicycle experienced a major resurgence. The bike boom of the 1970s wasn't just about fitness. It was a political statement. Riding a bike became a conscious choice, a way to protest air pollution and advocate for a cleaner planet. People realized that this humble two-wheeled invention held a key to a more sustainable future. It represented a move away from consumerism and a step towards personal responsibility. Choosing a bike over a car for a short trip was a small act of rebellion, a vote for cleaner air and quieter streets. Today, that movement is stronger than ever. Cities around the world are investing in bike lanes, bike-sharing programs, and infrastructure that prioritizes cyclists. The bicycle is no longer just an alternative. It's a central part of the solution to climate change, urban congestion, and public health crises. Modern e-bikes have expanded the possibilities even further, making cycling accessible to more people, for longer distances and over hillier terrain. They combine the best of both worlds, the clean, quiet efficiency of a bicycle with a gentle electric boost, making the car-free commute a realistic option for millions. From its earliest days as a quirky invention to its role in social liberation, and now to its position at the forefront of the green movement, the bicycle has proven to be one of humanity's most enduring and adaptable creations. It's a reminder that sometimes the simplest solutions are the most powerful. The bicycle didn't just change how we move. It offered a vision for a better, cleaner, and healthier way to live. It was a quiet alternative then, and it's a powerful solution now. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible ride through history. It's been a privilege to explore the story of this amazing machine with you. If you've enjoyed this series, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring that bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Until then, keep riding and stay curious. Have you ever tried to stuff a regular bicycle into the trunk of a small car, or lug one up 3 flights of stairs to your apartment? It's a struggle, right? Well, what if I told you there's a bicycle that can shrink down to the size of a suitcase? Today, we're unfolding the amazing story of the folding bicycle, a marvel of engineering that changed how we think about personal transport. The idea of a portable bicycle isn't new. In fact, it dates back to the late 19th century. Imagine this. It's the 1890s, and the military is looking for a way to make their soldiers more mobile. An English inventor named William Grout patents one of the first practical folding bikes. His design allowed a full-sized penny-farthing-style bike to be broken down for transport. But the real push came from the military. The French army, under Captain Charles Morel, developed a folding bike for their infantry. These bikes were rugged, could be carried on a soldier's back, and deployed in seconds, allowing troops to cover ground much faster than on foot. They even saw action in World War I, used by paratroopers and messengers who needed to be quick and nimble. These early military folders were the pioneers, proving that a bike didn't have to be a single, rigid frame. After the wars, the idea of a folding bike for civilian use started to gain traction. People were moving into cities, living in smaller apartments, and commuting on crowded trains. A full-sized bike was often just too impractical. The post-war era saw a boom in innovation. In the 1960s, one of the most iconic names in folding bikes emerged, Moulton. Alex Moulton, an engineer who had worked on the minicar's suspension, applied his genius to bicycles. The Moulton bicycle, launched in 1962, wasn't just a folder. It was a radical redesign of the bike itself. It had small wheels, a unique Ulysses XF frame, and front and rear suspension. It was comfortable, fast, and could be separated into 2 halves for easier storage. The Moulton wasn't just a utility bike. It was stylish and became a symbol of the swinging 60s. It proved that a small-wheeled bike could perform just as well, if not better, than its large-wheeled counterparts. Then, in the 1970s and 80s, the concept truly went mainstream. This is when we meet Andrew Ritchie, a brilliant mind behind the Brompton bicycle. The story goes that Ritchie, a recent engineering graduate, was looking at a Bickerton, another early folder, and thought, I can do better. And boy, did he. Working out of his London flat, he spent years perfecting a design with a 3-part fold that transformed the bike into a tiny, locked package. The Brompton's fold is so clever because all the greasy parts, like the chain and gears, end up neatly tucked away on the inside, so you don't get oil on your clothes when you carry it. It was designed specifically for the urban commuter who needed to hop on a train, ride to the office, and store their bike under their desk. The Brompton became the gold standard for compact folding, and its iconic design is still celebrated and used all over the world today. Simultaneously, across the globe in California, Dr. David Hunn was also tackling the problem. As a physicist working with lasers, he became frustrated with the hassle of transporting his bike during his commute. So, he put his scientific mind to work and founded Daewoo in 1982. Daewoo's innovation was creating reliable, affordable folding bikes for the masses. They developed a range of folding mechanisms and patents that made folding bikes more accessible to everyday people, not just niche enthusiasts. Daewoo played a huge role in popularizing the folding bike as a practical solution for daily life, from recreational riders to serious commuters. Their focus on creating a wide variety of models meant there was a folding bike for almost every need and budget. So why the obsession with folding? It's all about adapting to our modern lifestyles. Think about the last mile problem. You take a train or a bus into the city, but your final destination is still a 20-minute walk away. A folding bike solves this perfectly. You ride it to the station, fold it up, carry it on board, and then unfold it for the final leg of your journey. It bridges the gap in public transportation seamlessly. For people living in small city apartments, a folding bike means you don't have to risk leaving your prized possession locked up outside. You can just fold it up and bring it indoors, keeping it safe and sound. They're also fantastic for travel. Want to explore a new city on 2 wheels? Just pack your folding bike in the car or check it as luggage on a plane. It gives you incredible freedom and flexibility. The innovation hasn't stopped. Today's folding bikes are lighter, stronger, and more sophisticated than ever. We have electric folding bikes that give you a powerful boost up hills, making cycling accessible to even more people. Manufacturers are using advanced materials like carbon fiber and titanium to create incredibly lightweight frames. The folding mechanisms are becoming faster and more intuitive, sometimes taking less than 10 seconds to collapse. They come with high-performance gears, powerful disc brakes, and integrated lights. It's amazing to see how this once niche military concept has evolved into a high-tech, mainstream solution for modern urban living. The folding bike isn't just a convenient gadget. It's a symbol of smart, efficient, and sustainable transport. It's a bike that fits not just in your trunk, but into your life. From the battlefields of World War I to the bustling city streets of today, the folding bicycle has been on an incredible journey. It represents human ingenuity and our constant drive to make our tools better, smarter, and more suited to our changing world. It's a story of how a simple idea making a bicycle portable created a revolution in personal mobility, giving us more freedom and flexibility in how we move. Thank you so much for joining me on this ride through the history of the folding bike. What do you think is the coolest part of there? Ever seen one of those bicycles built for two and wondered, what's the story there? Well, today we're retaking a tandem ride through history to uncover how this unique machine became a symbol of companionship, coordination, and even a little bit of romance. The idea of putting two riders on one frame isn't as modern as you might think. The earliest concepts date back to the 1880s, not long after the safety bicycle, the two-wheeled design we know today, first appeared. One of the pioneers was a Danish inventor named Michael Pedersen. He created a lightweight tandem that weighed just 24 pounds, which was incredibly light for the time. But the real tandem boom happened in the 1890s. Why then? Well, the bicycle craze was in full swing. Roads were improving, people had more leisure time, and cycling was the new, exciting way to explore the world. But not everyone was a confident or a strong rider. This is where the tandem found its true purpose. Imagine you're a skilled male cyclist, but your partner, perhaps your wife or girlfriend, is less experienced. Hopping on a tandem meant you could ride together, sharing the effort and the adventure. The tandem became the ultimate enabler. A strong rider, typically the man sitting at the front, would take the role of captain, handling the steering, braking, and gear changes. The rider at the back, known as the stoker, primarily focused on pedaling. This arrangement allowed couples with different fitness levels to travel at the same speed and cover long distances together. It was a game changer for social cycling. Suddenly, a weekend trip to the countryside was not just a solo pursuit for athletic men, but a shared experience for couples. You see, a solo bicycle offered individual freedom, which was revolutionary, especially for women. But the tandem offered a different kind of freedom, the freedom to adventure together as equals on a single machine. It was a rolling metaphor for partnership. This idea of partnership was heavily marketed. Advertisements from the late 19th and early 20th centuries are filled with images of smiling, happy couples gliding through scenic landscapes on their tandems. They were sold as the perfect tool for courtship and companionship. The phrase, "bicycle built for two," became immortalized in the popular 1892 song, Daisy Bell, with its famous lyrics, "Daisy, Daisy, give me your answer, do. I'm half crazy all for the love of you. It won't be a stylish marriage, I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two." That song cemented the tandem's romantic image in popular culture forever. But it wasn't just for romance. Tandems also had a practical side. They were faster than solo bikes on flat ground and downhills because you had the power of two people but the wind resistance of only one. This made them popular in racing circles. Early tandem races were thrilling events, showcasing incredible speed and the high level of coordination required between the riders. The captain and stoker have to be perfectly in sync, starting, stopping, and pedaling in unison. It's a delicate dance of trust and communication. If one person leans the wrong way or stops pedaling unexpectedly, it can throw the whole ride off balance. As the 20th century progressed, the automobile began to overshadow the bicycle as the primary mode of transport and leisure. The golden age of the tandem seemed to fade, but it never truly disappeared. It found a new life in niche communities. For example, tandems became an invaluable tool for enabling people with visual impairments to experience the joy of cycling. With a sighted captain at the front, a visually impaired stoker can feel the wind in their hair and the rhythm of the ride. This opened up the world of cycling to a whole new group of people, reinforcing the tandem's role as a vehicle of inclusion and shared experience. In the cycling booms of the 1970s and again in recent years, the tandem has seen a resurgence. Modern tandems are technological marvels, built with lightweight alloys, advanced gearing systems, and powerful brakes designed to stop the momentum of two riders. They are used for everything from serious long-distance touring across continents to casual weekend rides along a beach boardwalk. The core appeal, however, remains unchanged from over a century ago. Ever wondered how a simple machine with two wheels could spark a revolution? It's not just a way to get around. The bicycle is a story of freedom, change, and quiet revolution. Let's pedal back in time and uncover the incredible journey of the bicycle. In the late 19th century, the world was a very different place. For most people, your world was as far as you could comfortably walk. Cities were dense, and the countryside felt a world away. Then came the bicycle. Initially, it was a toy for wealthy gentlemen. The high-wheeled penny farthing was expensive and frankly dangerous. A fall from one of those was no joke. It was a status symbol, a way for the elite to show off their daring and their wealth. But innovation never stands still. The invention of the safety bicycle in the 1880s changed everything. With two wheels of the same size, a chain-driven rear wheel, and pneumatic tires, it was safer, more comfortable, and much easier to ride. Suddenly, cycling was for everyone. This wasn't just a new gadget. It was a key to unlocking the world. For the average worker, it meant they could live further from the factory, in cheaper, healthier suburbs, and still get to work on time. The bicycle became a tool of social mobility, giving people control over their own commute and expanding their horizons, both literally and figuratively. It broke down the geographical barriers that had defined lives for centuries. And what a revolution it was for women. Imagine being corseted and draped in layers of heavy fabric. That was the reality. Riding a penny farthing was impossible, but the safety bicycle was a game changer. To ride comfortably, women began to reject the restrictive fashions of the era. They adopted rational dress, like shorter skirts and, most scandalously, bloomers. This was more than a fashion statement. It was an act of defiance. The bicycle gave women an unprecedented level of freedom and independence. They could travel unchaperoned, meet friends, and participate in public life in ways they never could before. Suffragist Susan B. Anthony famously said the bicycle had done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. It gave them a taste of freedom, a sense of self-reliance that fueled the fight for greater rights. As bicycles became more affordable, they also redefined leisure. The weekend took on a new meaning. City dwellers could suddenly escape the smoke and grime for a day in the countryside. Cycling clubs popped up everywhere, fostering a new sense of community and adventure. People weren't just traveling, they were exploring. They were seeing their country, meeting new people, and enjoying the simple pleasure of a picnic by a riverbank, all made possible by their trusty two-wheel companions. The bicycle turned the journey itself into a joyful activity, promoting health and well-being long before we had apps to track our steps. But the bicycle's story isn't just one of peacetime progress. Its impact was felt even in the darkest of times. When war broke out, this simple machine proved to be an invaluable asset. In a world of mud-clogged trenches and fuel shortages, the bicycle was a silent, reliable workhorse. Soldiers on bicycles became swift messengers, relaying vital information across front lines faster and more discreetly than a runner, and without needing the fuel or maintenance of a motorcycle. They weren't fighting vehicles, but support vehicles. Bicycle troops could move quietly through terrain that was impassable for larger vehicles, conducting reconnaissance missions and scouting enemy positions without a sound. They carried medical supplies to wounded soldiers, delivered rations to isolated units, and maintained lines of communication that were essential for coordinating movements. In occupied territories, resistance fighters used bicycles to distribute leaflets, transport supplies, and carry messages of hope, all under the noses of the enemy. The bicycle was a symbol of resilience, a quiet, unassuming tool that helped people carry on, connect, and endure through conflict. It represented the human spirit's ability to adapt and persevere, using simple ingenuity to make a difference. From a rich man's toy to a vehicle of emancipation, from a tool for social change to a lifeline in wartime, the bicycle has had a truly remarkable journey. It's a testament to how a simple invention can profoundly reshape society, empower individuals, and subtly steer the course of history. It gave us mobility, it changed our clothes, it expanded our freedoms, and it served quietly in times of need. The next time you hop on a bike, remember, you're not just going for a ride, you're participating in a legacy of freedom, progress, and adventure that's over a century old. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey today. If you enjoyed this story, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification. Hey everyone, and welcome back to our journey through the history of the bicycle. So far, we've talked about frames, wheels, and the massive social changes this incredible machine brought about. But today, I want to slow down a bit. I want us to close our eyes and just listen. What are the sounds of cycling? For me, it's not just the whir of the chain or the crunch of gravel under the tires. It's that one iconic, unmistakable sound, the gentle, cheerful ring of a bicycle bell. It's such a small object, isn't it? A little dome of metal, a simple thumb lever. But the bicycle bell is so much more than just a piece of hardware. It's the voice of the bicycle. In a world that was getting louder with the clatter of horse-drawn carriages and the eventual roar of motor cars, the bicycle offered a quieter, more personal way to travel. And its voice reflected that. It wasn't a commanding horn or a startling shout. It was a polite announcement, a friendly "pardon me," or a cheerful "coming through." The invention of the bell, often credited to British inventor John Richard Dedicoat in the late 1870s, was a simple solution to a simple problem: how to navigate shared spaces safely and courteously. Before the bell, cyclists might have shouted or used clackers or whistles. But the bell was different. It was elegant. It was standardized. It became part of the etiquette of the road, a small signal of mutual respect between riders and pedestrians. Think about the sound itself, that clear, high-pitched ding-ding. It's a sound that carries without being aggressive. It cuts through the low rumble of city life just enough to be noticed. It's a sound of awareness, a little auditory beacon that says, "I'm here. Let's share this space." In many ways, the bell embodies the very spirit of early cycling. Freedom, yes, but a considerate, community-minded freedom and a variety. From the classic domed bell with its bright single strike to the rotary bells that produce a continuous, melodic burring, each has its own personality. Some are tiny and discreet, almost hidden on the handlebars. Others are ornate, decorated with engravings or bright colors, becoming a small piece of personal expression, just like the bicycle itself. They are a tiny canvas for the rider's style. But let's go beyond the practical. The sound of a bicycle bell is pure nostalgia. It can transport you back to childhood summers, to that first taste of independence as you wobbled down your street, ringing your bell for no reason other than the sheer joy of it. It's the sound of a lazy Sunday afternoon in the park, of a bustling European city street, of a delivery person weaving through traffic. It's a universal sound of simple, human-powered movement. And it connects to that other subtle sound of cycling, the almost musical hum of the machine in motion. Listen closely next time you're on a quiet path. You'll hear the soft whir of the spokes cutting through the air, creating a low, hypnotic hum. It's the sound of physics at work, of wheels turning, of progress being made one pedal stroke at a time. It's a meditative sound, the rhythm of your own effort. When you combine that gentle hum with the occasional clear ring of a bell, you get the complete soundscape of cycling. It's a symphony of subtlety. It's not about power or noise. It's about grace, efficiency, and a harmonious presence in the world. It's the sound of a machine that doesn't dominate its environment, but moves through it with a light touch and a friendly announcement of its arrival. In our loud, fast-paced world, The bicycle bell is a gentle reminder. It reminds us to be aware of each other, to communicate with kindness, and to appreciate the simple, beautiful sounds of a quieter way of moving. It's a small object that makes a big statement about the kind of world we want to share. It's the polite, unassuming, and utterly charming voice of the bicycle. So the next time you hear that ding ding, take a moment. It's not just a warning. It's a piece of history, a note in the song of the city, and a tiny ringing tribute to the freedom and joy of the ride. Thanks so much for tuning in for this quieter chapter of our story. I hope it gave you a new appreciation for the little details. If you enjoyed this, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing so you don't miss our next adventure. Ride safe and listen for the music of the ride. See you next time. Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we're embarking on a fascinating journey, tracing the path of one of the world's most transformative inventions, the bicycle. We've talked about its early days, its impact on social mobility, and even how it changed fashion. But how did this two-wheeled wonder conquer the globe? Let's find out. The story of the global bicycle isn't just about shipping crates of bikes overseas. It's a tale of incredible adaptation and innovation. When the bicycle arrived in new lands, it didn't just stay the same. It was reinvented, reshaped by the unique terrain, traditions, and needs of each culture. Take the Netherlands, for example. It's the bicycle capital of the world, right? But why? It's not just because they like cycling. The flat terrain and compact cities made the bicycle a perfect solution for daily commuting. The Dutch didn't just adopt the bike. They built their infrastructure around it, creating a cycling utopia with dedicated lanes and massive parking garages. The iconic Dutch Omafias or grandma bike, with its upright riding position and sturdy frame, is a direct result of designing for comfort and practicality in daily life. Now, let's travel from the flatlands of Holland to the bustling, hilly streets of Asia. In countries like Vietnam and China, the bicycle became the backbone of commerce for decades. It wasn't just for personal transport, it was a workhorse. Think of the incredible loads you'd see balanced on a single bike, vendors carrying towering stacks of goods, farmers taking produce to market. These weren't your lightweight racing bikes. They were heavy-duty, often locally modified freight bicycles, built for strength and stability, not speed. The bicycle empowered small entrepreneurs, giving them mobility and a way to earn a living in rapidly growing cities. It was, and in many places still is, a vehicle of economic opportunity. And what about Africa? Here the bicycle's story is one of connection and access. In many rural areas with limited road infrastructure, the bicycle is a lifeline. It bridges the last-mile gap, connecting remote villages to schools, healthcare, and markets. Organizations have recognized this power, developing bicycle ambulances, specially designed stretcher attachments to transport patients in areas where motor vehicles can't go. In Kenya, the Boda Boda bicycle taxi culture started long before motorcycles took over the name, providing affordable transport and creating jobs. The bikes used here are tough, easy to repair, and built to handle rugged, unpaved paths. It's a perfect example of adaptation to a challenging environment. Let's not forget India, where the bicycle has a rich and storied history. For generations, the classic roadster, like the famous Hero Jet, was the symbol of the common man. It was sturdy, reliable, and affordable. It carried fathers to work, children to school, and connected entire communities. While cars and motorcycles have become more common, the bicycle still holds a special place. In recent years, there's been a resurgence in cycling, not just for utility, but for fitness and leisure, showing how the bicycle's role can evolve even within a single culture. From the cargo bikes of Copenhagen to the bamboo frame bikes being innovatively built in Ghana, the bicycle is constantly being reimagined. Each modification, each local name, each unique use tells a story about the people who ride it. It shows us that technology isn't just a one-size-fits-all solution. Its true power is unlocked when it is embraced and adapted by local communities to solve their own specific challenges. The bicycle isn't just a machine. It's a mirror reflecting the landscape, economy, and spirit of the places it calls home. It's a symbol of human ingenuity and our universal desire for freedom, connection, and progress. It has proven, time and time again, to be one of the most democratic and adaptable inventions in human history. It's a simple machine that has changed the world in countless complex and beautiful ways. Thank you so much for joining me on this global tour of the bicycle. What does the bicycle look like where you live? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd love to read them. If you enjoyed this journey, please give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Until next time, keep exploring. Ever notice that green painted lane on your way to work? Or maybe you've zipped down one yourself, feeling that little bit of separation from the rush of traffic. It feels so normal now, doesn't it? But have you ever stopped to think about where these bicycle lanes came from? It wasn't an overnight decision. This is the story of a quiet revolution, a battle fought not with loud protests, but with persistent peddling and clever planning. Let's rewind to the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The bicycle boom was in full swing. People were discovering this incredible new freedom on two wheels. But there was a problem. Roads were, to put it mildly, a mess. They were built for horses and carts, rutted, muddy, and completely unsuitable for these newfangled cycling machines. Early cyclists weren't just hobbyists, they were pioneers. They formed clubs and alliances like the League of American Wheelmen, and they started a powerful movement called the Good Roads Movement. Their argument was simple. Better roads benefit everyone. Smoother surfaces meant faster travel, cleaner cities, and better connections for farmers and merchants. They lobbied politicians, published articles, and essentially paved the way literally for the age of the automobile that was just around the corner. Ironically, The very success of their campaign almost pushed them off the roads they helped create. As cars became more popular and affordable, the streets became the domain of the automobile. The roar of engines drowned out the quiet hum of bicycle change. Cyclists, once the kings of the road, were now seen as obstacles, nuisances holding up the real traffic. The road which they had fought to improve was no longer a friendly place for them. For several decades, the bicycle was relegated to a child's toy or a niche sport, far from the mainstream of daily transport. But then, something began to shift in the 1960s and 70s. A new consciousness was dawning. People started questioning the car-centric world we had built. Concerns about air pollution, the environmental impact of endless asphalt, and the health consequences of a sedentary lifestyle began to bubble to the surface. The oil crisis of 1973 was a major wake-up call, highlighting our dependence on fossil fuels. Suddenly, that simple, human-powered machine sitting in the garage didn't look so old-fashioned anymore. It looked like a solution. This is when the modern concept of the bicycle lane was truly born. It started small. In 1967, Davis, California, a university town with a flat landscape and a forward-thinking population, installed some of the very first dedicated bike lanes in the United States. It was an experiment. Could they really carve out a safe space for cyclists within the existing city grid? The answer was a resounding yes. Students and residents embraced the new infrastructure. Cycling rates soared. Davis became a blueprint, a proof of concept that other cities started to notice. The idea began to spread, not with a bang, but as a slow, deliberate process. Urban planners and a new wave of cycling advocates started looking at cities differently. They saw networks not just of roads, but of potential pathways. They used data to show that investing in bike lanes wasn't just good for cyclists, it was good for the city as a whole. It reduced traffic congestion, improved public health, and created more vibrant, people-friendly neighborhoods. This was a quiet form of advocacy. It wasn't about shouting matches in City Hall. It was about presenting well-researched plans, demonstrating successful pilot programs, and patiently explaining the benefits. Planners in cities like Portland, Oregon, and Minneapolis took the lead, transforming their urban landscapes one painted line at a time. They showed that you could retrofit a city built for cars to make it safer and more inviting for people on bikes. They experimented with different designs, buffered lanes with extra space, protected lanes with physical barriers, and entire bicycle boulevards where bikes had priority. Of course, it wasn't always a smooth ride. There was pushback. Drivers worried about losing parking spaces or lanes for their cars. Some businesses feared that fewer cars would mean fewer customers. Each new bike lane project often faced a debate, a negotiation between the old way of thinking and a new vision for the city. But the advocates were persistent. They organized community bike rides. They presented economic studies showing that bike-friendly business districts actually thrive. And they highlighted the safety benefits for everyone, including pedestrians and even drivers. What's fascinating is how this infrastructure has, in turn, reshaped our culture. The presence of a safe, convenient bike lane is a powerful invitation. It says, "You are welcome here." This is a legitimate way to travel. It encouraged people who might have been too intimidated to ride in traffic to give it a try. We see it every day. Parents cycling with their kids to school, commuters in business attire gliding. Have you ever stopped to think about the simple, brilliant machine that is the bicycle? It's more than just two wheels and a frame. It's a story of innovation, revolution, and freedom. And it all started with a disaster. In 1815, Mount Tambora erupted, causing a year without a summer. Crops failed and horses, the primary mode of transport, starved. This crisis spurred a German inventor, Karl von Dray, to create a solution. In 1817, he unveiled the Laufmaschine, or running machine. It was a clunky wooden contraption with two wheels and a handlebar, but no pedals. You pushed it along with your feet, like a modern balance bike. It wasn't exactly graceful, but it was a start, the first spark of an idea that would change the world. It was a step, quite literally, towards a new kind of personal mobility, born from necessity and ready to roll into the future. The Draisine, as it became known, was a novelty. mostly for wealthy dandies who enjoyed gliding through parks. But the real evolution was yet to come. Fast forward to the 1860s in Paris, where the concept of adding pedals directly to the front wheel took hold. The velocipede, or fast foot, was born. Nicknamed the Bone Shaker, it lived up to its name. With its stiff iron frame and wooden wheels with iron tires, riding on cobblestone streets was a jarring, bone-rattling experience. These early bikes were heavy and difficult to master. You needed a good deal of strength and balance to get going, and stopping was an adventure in itself. Despite the discomfort, the Bone Shaker craze spread. Velocipede schools popped up teaching people how to ride these unwieldy machines. It was the first time that human-powered transport became a popular form of recreation, a thrilling, if bumpy, taste of mechanical speed. The quest for speed led to one of the most iconic and frankly terrifying designs in bicycle history, the penny farthing. The logic was simple. The larger the front wheel, the farther you could travel with a single pedal rotation. So, front wheels grew to enormous sizes, some over 5 feet tall, while the rear wheel shrank to a tiny stabilizer. These high-wheelers, popular in the 1870s and 80s, were fast and thrilling but incredibly dangerous. Mounting and dismounting required athletic skill, and a sudden stop could send the rider flying headfirst over the handlebars, a fall known as taking a header. This made penny farthing riding a pursuit for daring young men, a symbol of athletic prowess and a bit of a status symbol. It was a spectacle, a high-wire act on wheels, and it further cemented the bicycle's place in the public imagination, even if it wasn't practical for everyone. The real revolution, the one that put the world on two wheels, was the safety bicycle. In the late 1880s, inventors finally cracked the code. By using a chain to connect the pedals to the rear wheel, they could ditch the giant front wheel. This new design featured two wheels of equal size, a much lower center of gravity, and eventually air-filled pneumatic tires invented by John Boyd Dunlop. Suddenly, bicycles were stable, comfortable, and safe. This wasn't just an improvement. It was a complete transformation. Riding was no longer a daredevil act. It was accessible, practical, and fun for almost everyone. The safety bicycle, particularly models like John Kemp Starley's Rover from 1885, set the template for the modern bike we still ride today. It was the key that unlocked the bicycle's true potential. With the arrival of the safe and affordable bicycle, a bicycle boom swept across America and Europe in the 1890s. It was a phenomenon. Everyone, it seemed, was getting a bike. This wasn't just a new hobby. It was a vehicle for profound social change. For the first time, ordinary working people had a means of personal, independent travel. You were no longer tied to the slow pace of walking or the fixed routes and schedules of trains and trams. The bicycle gave people the freedom to explore their surroundings, to visit neighboring towns, or simply to enjoy a ride in the countryside. It expanded personal horizons and offered a sense of autonomy that was previously unimaginable for the average person. The world suddenly felt a little bit bigger and a lot more accessible. This newfound mobility had a massive impact on daily life. Workers could now live farther from their jobs, leading to the growth of suburbs. Young people could court and socialize away from the watchful eyes of their parents, leading to a shift in social customs. The bicycle became a tool of courtship and a symbol of independence for a new generation. Farmers could get to town more easily, and doctors could make their rounds more quickly. It even led to a call for better roads, as cyclists organized and lobbied for smoother surfaces to ride on. The League of American Wheelmen was a powerful force in the good roads movement. In a very real sense, cyclists were paving the way literally for the coming age of the automobile, all while enjoying their newfound freedom on two wheels. Perhaps the most revolutionary impact of the bicycle was on women's freedom. In the late 19th century, women's lives were heavily restricted, both physically and socially. The bicycle became a powerful symbol and tool of emancipation. It offered an unprecedented level of freedom of movement. A woman on a bicycle could travel on her own, without a male escort, which was a radical act at the time. This simple machine gave women a taste of independence and self-reliance that was intoxicating. As the famous suffragist Susan B. Anthony declared in 1896, the bicycle has done more to emancipate women than anything else in the world. She saw it as a vehicle for freedom, helping women to roll out of the domestic sphere and into a wider world of opportunity. Of course, you can't ride a bicycle in a corset and a floor-length Victorian gown. The rise of cycling directly challenged restrictive women's fashion. To ride comfortably and safely, women needed more practical clothing. This led to the adoption of shorter skirts, divided skirts, and even bloomers' baggy trousers that were controversial at the time. Critics were scandalized, arguing that such attire was unladylike and improper. But for women, it was about liberation. They were literally casting off the constraints of old-fashioned clothing in favor of freedom of movement. This shift in fashion wasn't just about comfort. It was a visible statement about women's changing role in society, a rejection of old norms, and a move towards a more active, modern lifestyle. The bicycle story doesn't end in the 1890s. In the 20th century, as cars began to dominate the streets, the bicycle's role shifted in many Western countries from primary transport to recreation and fitness. But in many parts of the world, it remained an essential tool for daily life, a way to get to work, to school, to market. It's a workhorse, a delivery vehicle, a family taxi. Think of the bustling streets of Amsterdam or Copenhagen, where cycling is a way of life integrated into the very fabric of the city. These cities show us a different path. One where the bicycle is celebrated not just for leisure, but as a smart, efficient, and healthy solution for urban mobility. The bike's utility is universal, adapting to the needs of every culture it touches. And so we come full circle. Today, the bicycle is experiencing a global renaissance. In an age of traffic jams, climate change, and a desire for healthier lifestyles, this 200-year-old invention feels more relevant than ever. It's a simple solution to complex problems. It offers a way to connect with our communities, to reduce our carbon footprint, and to get some gentle exercise. Whether you're a weekend warrior tackling a mountain trail, a commuter weaving through city traffic, or a child experiencing the thrill of balancing on two wheels for the first time, the feeling is the same. The bicycle endures as a powerful symbol of freedom, simplicity, and joy. It's a quiet revolution